I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. Every so often, I like to do a deep dive into one of the product brands that I love and that I use often as part of a series that I call Behind the Brand. It's a semi-regular feature here on our Fueled Wellness and Nutrition podcast. And y'all, I am so excited to share that this episode of Behind the Brand is about Banza, a product that has single-handedly changed the landscape of the pasta aisle, an unassuming brand that Time magazine named one of the best inventions of 2015. I'd like to also note that this podcast is not sponsored by Banza. We're not being paid by Banza to feature this. This is simply a product that I use often, I love, and really just wanted to learn more about the company, the backstory, and be able to share it with you guys. So Banza was created by a guy named Brian Rudolph. He was in his early 20s in his kitchen in Detroit. It's a pasta that's made from chickpeas, if you're not familiar with it. It packs in 4 times the fiber, twice the protein of regular pasta, and 40% fewer net carbs, which is one of the reasons, all of those are the reasons that I love it. I love the way it tastes. I love it nutritionally. Myself and my fellow dietitians were recommending it all the time as our standard go-to pasta. So we'll hear about what this looks like. How does this even happen? Making pasta out of chickpeas from scratch, and then how the company has grown exponentially in just 6 short years. It's now available in more than 12,000 retailers across the US and Canada, and also what they've learned about scaling up production along the way. We are joined by Leigh Hamp, VP of Product for Banza. So welcome, Leigh. We're excited to have you with us today.
Thank you. So excited to be here talking to you, Molly.
And your role with Banza is centered on product development and marketing. So tell us your background. And I mean, that's a really cool job. And I think anyone hearing that who has an interest in, the world of, food science or any kind of culinary interest, it's like, man, how does that even happen? So talk to us about the journey that brought you to Banza.
Absolutely. So yes, I love my job, and I'm so happy I get to wake up and eat pasta every day. And my journey, honestly, is a little bit non-traditional. I am not a food scientist, and I'm so grateful for the food scientists on our team. I graduated from college and had no idea what I wanted to do. So I went into consulting for a few years just to sort of learn about different companies and business problems. And from that, learned that I wanted a role that was a little bit more creative and focused in the world of food, because I've always loved to cook and am just so passionate about food that makes people feel really good when they're eating it. And so I decided to go back to school and got my master's in product design and development management from Northwestern University, which is under their School of Engineering. And through that, I learned sort of the end-to-end product development process, from consumer research to ideation to development to scale up, manufacturing, packaging, the works. And was able to really translate that work into the role and the opportunity that I have here at Banza. And it has been such a journey to get to this role, and it truly is a dream job. So fortunate that I was able to sort of follow a path that allowed me to get to this place.
Yeah, because you had said before that your undergrad was in liberal arts, English major. Yeah. So to go into this, and you went to grad school, and as you said, have your master's in product design and development management. But talk to us about the James Beard Scholarship that you received. That is fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was looking to go back to grad school, I decided I either wanted to go into product design and sort of work in the world of food and somehow get there. I'm not quite sure how that was going to work at the time, or go to culinary school. As I mentioned, I've always loved to cook, but I knew I couldn't do both, or at least I didn't think I could do both, and decided to go potentially the more conservative route, the route that I think my parents were more comfortable with, and go back to grad school and study product design. But I tried to find a way to make both work. So
I'm going to interject. Even with that, they're like, okay, you're going to be a chef or you're going to go to grad school. But even when you were telling them what you're going to go to grad school for, I have to imagine that it's still this like very kind of like esoteric idea. They're probably still like,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? But what are you going to do? You know?
Exactly. And the truth is, I had no idea
Right.
really at the time. I just knew I loved the creative aspect of product design, and I knew that there was a world of product design and food product design, and I really wanted to sort of see what that could be and see what path could get me there. But certainly, my parents were like, "You're leaving consulting to do what?" So that was sort of a funny evolution of my career. But yeah, I decided to, on the whim, apply to the James Beard Culinary Scholarship Program, would recommend it to anybody who is passionate about food. And one day I got a letter in the mail. It was, I think, my first actual physical acceptance letter that said I got a scholarship
Wow.
and was able to take culinary courses at a culinary school in Chicago. I don't have a degree in culinary arts, but was able to take a couple courses and an 8-week-long course that's sort of like intro to culinary school. So I worked chef flights and learned knife skills and learned sort of how things work on the restaurant and culinary side, which to me just sharpened my sort of culinary chops and was able to provide a little bit more credibility to help me aid in the transition from the very sort of traditional consulting world to this world of food product development. And I'm just so grateful that my path evolved in that way. And I was able to spend that year focusing on both understanding and learning about how to design physical products and getting more familiar with what goes on in the culinary world. It was such a privilege.
Bringing a product to market from this idea that you have this idea in your head and how to bring it to market. I think it's also a really cool thing, and it's admirable that you kind of tuned into, okay, what am I really passionate about, what I want? Because you had a career, you were rocking along that path. And for a lot of people, we would kind of go with the status quo because I'm doing it, I'm enjoying it, it's fine. Like, why would I change this? And so I really admire you saying, you know what, I really want something different, you know, to feel more fulfilled. So I think that's a great lesson for all of us.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think the advice that I would give to anybody is you're going to work probably for a long time. And so find a path and find a place where you're excited to get up and go to work most days. I mean, work is a job, so things aren't going to be rosy 100% of the time. But I think being able to really tune into what you want and what you want out of your career, it was really important to me. And I'm so happy that I sort of followed my heart and was able to carve out a creative path to getting to the place where I was really hoping that I could be.
And that expertise that you developed of everything that goes into taking something from an idea all the way to when it ends up on the grocery store shelves is a perfect fit for your transition into Banza. So share with us, I know a little bit about the backstory of Banza, but walk us through what this looked like, because I think a lot of people don't know. We see this product, but you know, it was created by a guy in his 20s in his kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah. So Banza was founded in 2014 by Brian and Scott Rudolph, two brothers. And Brian is our CEO and invented Banza in his kitchen. So he is gluten-free and always seeking out alternatives of products that make him feel good. So back when he graduated from college, he was working at a startup, but sort of looking to start something himself. And one of the things that he was noodling on, sorry for the bad pun, was how can we take pasta, a food that he loved growing up but now couldn't eat, and make a gluten-free version that not only tasted great but was really nutritionally dense. The gluten-free options on the market back when Brian was thinking about this idea were predominantly made of corn and rice, which are fine gluten-free ingredients, but they don't pack that protein and fiber punch.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. And so he bought some chickpea flour and had a pasta maker, one of those crank pasta makers that you may have used at an Italian cooking class, and started playing around in his kitchen with chickpeas and a lot of different ingredients. And he would bring the samples to work and have people try them, and tried a bunch of different ingredients. And very quickly, based on the feedback that he was getting, based on just his overall affinity for what he was making, it became very clear that there was promise and there was potential. And so he decided to go into business with his brother, Scott, who's our CFO now. And they built Banza from the ground up. It's a pretty incredible founding story.
And so 2014, how old was Brian? How old was Scott?
So Brian that's a good question. Brian was 24, I believe. And Scott, I believe, is 6 years older than him. So there is an age gap between the two of them.
Yeah.
And Scott was living in New York at the time, working in finance. Brian was living in Detroit, working at startups. And they both bring such unique skills to the table. To me, in hindsight, it makes total sense that they went into business together. But there was an age gap, there was an industry and experience gap. But they decided to sort of play to each of their strengths and start this business together. And so Banza was founded in Detroit, basically in Brian's apartment. And the business grew from there.
So when we think about what most people are doing at 24 years old, well, you know what? Most people might be rolling out pasta by hand, like using their rolling pin or whatever, but never thinking that this is going to turn into, such a giant success that it has. And it didn't take long. It was like shortly after that. It sounds like, I think this is another kind of one of those lessons is you could make something and he could make it in his kitchen and be like, man, this is really good. And just have it and sit on it and enjoy it himself for the personal needs that he had. But spreading the word and starting to get others on board or get others feedback, and that feedback from others, when it is so positive, it's like, wow, okay, this it gives you the confidence to take that next step, when it's so well received, you think, well, why not just try it or go bigger? And I think the chickpeas, it's brilliant because the color is so similar to regular pasta. Of course, the flavor is neutral. Like you don't have such a strong flavor. So you've got the color, the flavor, even the texture is really similar. And I find that most people's feedback on it is at first they may be hesitant because they've tried whole wheat pasta and it was so chewy or they just didn't really like it. But people can fake their kids out so easily on it. Oh, I'll tell you this. My father-in-law, so we had the Banza mac and cheese and my father-in-law had come over with we had family over all for dinner, but he specifically, he's not a big vegetable person. And, if we had told him it was chickpea pasta, he would have been like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm not going to have any. And so we just didn't say anything. And he's eating the mac and cheese and he's like, inhaling it quickly. And I'm just like, I can't stop smiling. And now we're sitting at the table, everyone's sitting around and I'm just looking at him with this huge smile on my face, bordering on just losing it laughing. And he's like, cause he's like, this is so good. Oh man, this is so good. And he's looking at me, he's like, what? And I said, it's chickpeas. And he's like, what? He's stops mid bite, mid chew. And I said, Mr. J, did you really think you're going to come to our house for dinner? I'm going to give you mac and cheese out of the box, Kraft mac and cheese. I said, of course not, this is going to be, so he was like, oh man. So it was, definitely, it passes a test to people who even would think that that's not something they're a fan of.
Yeah, no, I think that when we pass the kid test and when we pass the picky eater test, it is such, it makes everyone on the team feel so good. Just because, to your point, the goal is for Banza to look like pasta, taste like pasta, cook like pasta. And so when we can pass even the most discriminating palates, we take that as a huge win.
Yes, well, you passed the father-in-law test. And so
yes, exactly.
Then he's like, okay, this has got something. So what's the next step? How do you take it from your kitchen to scale it up? So when you get your first order or you're pounding the pavement, you're letting retailers know about it. And then someone bites and you're like, okay, wow, this is awesome. Now I have this grocer who's going to start stocking it on their shelves. What does that look like to even get it manufactured to that scale?
So at the time when this was happening, Banza was not the brand that it is right now. So it was a lot of cold outreach to a lot of gluten-free pasta manufacturing facilities, hoping that someone would take a chance. And there was not a ton of money. There wasn't a ton of resources. It was kind of like, okay, somebody bit, and let's go try it out. And scaling a formula that works in a kitchen is different than making it at a large scale. And Brian and Scott had a tremendous amount of iterations in order to make the product work. And luckily, we got interest from our first retailer, Meijer, which is based in Michigan. And I believe Brian brought samples of the product in a Pringles can to the sales meeting because we didn't have much product, and that was what it was. There was no packaging, and they loved it. And so it was really capitalizing on that excitement, that commitment, and sort of Brian and Scott saying, okay, we're going to make this work. So there was a lot of trial at the plant, and they had a lot of issues with the first production run. They ended up having to change and sticker over some of the packaging just because the product wasn't cooking as it should. But they were running out of time and resources and just needed to get something on shelf.
So then you have all these boxes, like thousands and thousands of boxes that had already been printed with what worked in a very small scale for, what might be 8 or 12 servings. And then when it's scaled up in the actual manufacturing facility, it didn't work. So then you've got to hire a crew to do nothing but sticker boxes with the new instructions over it.
Yes, we have a lovely contact who can rush order stickers. I still have them saved in my phone in case of emergency. And they were able to print stickers with the updated instructions. And then it was a matter of stickering over the directions on every single box. And sometimes you just got to do it in order to make it work. And very fortunately, that worked and the product did well. And it was it just went from there.
And that's one of those things that's horrifying at the time. It probably for some, period felt like the world is crashing down. It's the end of the world. This is the worst thing ever. But it happens surprisingly all the time. I was sharing with you the story of another, a local brand here who has a national reach. And just earlier this year, there was a product that went out and we're talking 2020, and it went out, and they've had a lot of products at the market, but this particular one, there was a mishap in the time and temp on baking. And so they had to we got to hire a crew. We got to resticker thousands of boxes. So it's definitely something that happens. But yeah, I can imagine as you're in the thick of it, it seems like it's the end of the world.
Particularly for being so early in the business and wanting to deliver the best product to our first customer.
The first ever. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a stressful time for Brian and the Banza team. But everything worked out. And I think that just shows that just sort of being flexible and finding a solution and doing what it takes to get the product made and on shelf is so key, especially in the early days.
And having, I would assume Meijer, the grocer, is hopefully understanding and stuff like that, because, it being also in Michigan with, relatively local there. So talk about the name. So Banza, I have to say, this is one of those things that I'll still have people who aren't putting together Banza with garbanzo beans. And I'll admit it might have taken me a solid 18 months of eating it on a regular basis. And then all of a sudden it hit me chickpeas, garbanzo beans. Oh, Banza,
Exactly.
How did the name come about? Were there other iterations first? The box design, the colors, all of this?
Yeah. I was talking to Brian about this a couple of days ago, just to sort of pick his brain in terms of everything that he considered when creating the brand. And because, and as you mentioned, Molly, so Banza is based on garbanzo and pasta. So garbanzo bean pasta. So it's meant to sort of flow off the tongue. And in the sort of evolution of what the brand should be called, Brian considered actually a lot of names sort of with tied to Greek culture, in the sense that the Mediterranean diet and garbanzo beans are just such a big part of the diet there. And so he considered a couple of things that were sort of tied to Greek origins. An investor also suggested that maybe we consider Banzo. Again, that's a little bit closer to garbanzo, but Banza ended up just feeling right. And that's what the team moved forward with. And as it pertains to the overall first look and feel, you can look it up. We had sort of a white box with orange accents. And again, it was meant to sort of communicate, hey, this pasta is made from chickpeas. There was a window in the box so people could see that it looked just like normal pasta from a color and visual perspective. And that worked, particularly in the beginning. We ended up going through a rebrand in 2016 to sort of get to that Banza orange that you see on shelf today. But even that orange color sort of is evocative of the decisions that Brian and the team made in the early days to be eye-catching and to sort of really communicate in a simple way what the product is.
And it does. It definitely jumps out because everything else that's in the pasta aisle, there's a lot of beige, obviously, and there's a lot of blue. So having that bright, vivid color definitely stands out. So once there's the name, there's the brand, there's the product design, how do you spread the word? So when you've got such a shoestring budget, but you have this product that you believe in, other people believe in, you're starting it into retailers, what's the strategy there to really communicate on a broad platform, but with such a shoestring budget?
Absolutely. So I think what Brian and Scott and the team felt really passionate about is really sort of in our culture to this day is we need to get the product in people's hands. We need to get them to try it. We need to get them to love it. And we want to just talk to them about it. So in the very, very early Banza days, Brian and the team went to the farmers market in Detroit every weekend and were making pasta and selling pasta to passersby in the market to just spread the word in the local community where the company launched. And even to this day, from time to time, someone writes in and says, hey, I remember you guys at the Detroit Farmers Market.
Well, also because pasta is not a common thing at a farmer's market. So you're not going to forget it, even if you didn't remember the name or put that together. Yeah, that's cool.
Exactly. And I think that even evolved as the company grew to grocery store demos. So one of the things I love doing when we can is going to Whole Foods or going to another grocery store and setting up a table, of course, with their permission at the end of the pasta aisle and sampling Banza to people who walk by. It is such a good way to sort of get people's reactions as soon as they take a bite to say, wait, what? This is made from chickpeas? And understand how kids like it and how kids react. And what's great about sort of the farmers market demo and the grocery store demo that we have been doing for so long is it also gets our team super comfortable and familiar with talking to people about the product, why it's so good, getting feedback firsthand, and just spreading the word throughout local communities. It's such a grassroots effort, but it has served our company so well in terms of just penetrating local markets, getting face time with customers, and just really talking about the product.
And hearing more ideas, because a lot of times I'm sure some of y'all's best ideas have come from things that people say, hey, what if you could do this?
Absolutely. And getting new ideas, hey, I don't love that the texture is this way. Getting new ideas and getting ideas to improve our products is so great when people are trying it firsthand right in front of you.
And I would imagine too, you saw or heard stories of someone that might say, I got it, but it didn't taste like this when I did it at home. And then you could realize maybe what people were doing that was resulting in maybe not the best product or like things that they were doing, like user error basically at home, that you could then, hear that and know that, okay, in our messaging, we need to include this or whatever it would be. What about like media and social media and influencers? How did that play a role in the expansion of the brand?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the early days, our team spent some time reaching out to media. Banza was named as the best invention of
Yes.
2015 by Time Magazine. So that was a huge early win for our brand and our team. And our team worked so hard to make that happen. Brian was also on Good Morning America early on, sort of pitching Banza, and that was hugely monumental for our early growth and familiarity with the brand. And also, I think back in 2014, 2015, Instagram was, of course, a thing, but sort of the build out of influencers to what we know of them as today it was just different. And so our team identified and recognized that really sort of building genuine relationships with grassroots or smaller influencers, and some of which have grown to be really huge influencers, is such a great way to build trust with micro communities. And so our marketing team spent a lot of time building out an influencer network, an RD network with registered dietitians to, again, help spread the word in a much more sort of genuine and lower funnel way. And it was also convenient because it takes a lot of work on our end, but it's not super expensive in term as compared to like paying for a commercial spot or
Right.
something like that. So building that grassroots community, both through farmers market and in-store demos and influencers, was really key to sort of building that brand trust early on because it was a person-to-person interaction.
And I love the using, turning to influencers, which is kind of the social, but they maybe have a large following, but they're not necessarily the experts. So then also including registered dietitians who are going to communicate that in often a very different way and to a very different population as well. So that's just, I think that's a
Exactly.
great, great blend. So now with Banza, there are so many different varieties. There's pasta, there's the mac and cheese we were talking about with my father-in-law, there's Banza rice. So walk us through kind of all the different varieties that are available now. And also, I'm curious of just like what were the original shapes that came out too?
Yeah, absolutely. So today, Banza has three different product lines. So our pasta, which has 16 different pasta shapes, including familiar short shapes like penne and rotini, and then long beloved shapes like spaghetti and linguine and angel hair. We also have a line of mac and cheeses, as you mentioned earlier, Molly, and we have those classics. So elbows and yellow cheddar, shells and white cheddar, again, just sort of meant to have a better for you option in the mac and cheese aisle. And then our newest product line is Banza rice, which is rice made from chickpeas. And again, it's meant to sort of go after white rice and brown rice and give people a high protein, high fiber, lower net carbs alternative to the grains that they love to make as the base of their grain bowl or fried rice or something like that. So those are our three product lines. And our pasta was, of course, our first product line. And we launched with short shapes. So rotini, penne, and elbows, I believe, were our first three shapes.
And the rice, how did this come about? Because that seemed, and I got samples of that because I'm on part of the RD network and that you guys have, and I got samples, but it was like, I was like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing. Can we share on social? And y'all were like, no, like we can't share on social. Like it's not, this is like, but it was truly the sneak peek before it was out on the market, but getting our feedback, getting us to try it, give our full impressions and, making it. And I was like, this is brilliant because the only thing that is really a rice alternative that's going to be lower carb is cauliflower rice. And like, it's similar to pasta, like you've got spiralized zucchini or things like that. You've got the cauliflower rice, but I think having something that's got a little bit heartier texture, it was brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, we are super excited about the product line. And not to knock cauliflower rice, it is perfect for certain applications. But I think what we learned when talking to consumers was people are looking for that sort of starchy, comforting experience that rice provides, but are looking to level up the nutrients of it. So a little Banza rice can go a long way. It's super satiating. It's really high in protein relative to brown and white rice, really high in fiber, so it fills you up. But we've really worked hard to design it so it can be a one-for-one swap for rice wherever you would use it.
And you were telling me earlier that this was one of those that you kind of listened to consumer feedback because people were putting their Banza pasta in the food processor and given it a quick pulse to break it up and form rice. So then y'all were like, okay, we can help you make this so much easier.
Exactly. What we saw on social were that people were using Banza pasta in the way that you would normally use rice. So they were using penne as a base for a grain bowl, and they were putting different pastas in applications that you would normally use a rice or a grain. And so we were like, there has to be something there. And that's when we started talking to consumers to understand, hey, how do you guys use grains today? What's missing as it pertains to using rice or quinoa? And from there, that was really the goal, was to make a product that they loved and that was satiating and comforting and evocative of that rice experience. But again, super dense from a nutrient perspective. So that was a fun way to sort of talk to customers and let them lead the way as it pertains to product development.
And the newest release that you guys have is the flavored rice. Share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just launched flavored rice and we're super excited about it. And really the goal of flavored rice, what we saw was customers have so much love for flavored rice. It's convenient, it's flavorful, it's easy to make. But we were talking to customers, having interviews and conversations with them, and there was a lot of guilt that they felt as it pertained to the flavored rice market, flavored rice options on the market today. And what they were a little bit nervous and wary of was that some flavored rice options are not clean label. There's a lot of unfamiliar ingredients in there.
Yeah.
And then the other big concern was tied to salt. And of course, I love salt. Salt is amazing, but too much salt is not good. And so what we really heard from customers was, give me a clean label, simple ingredients, lower sodium, but still flavorful flavored rice option that I can feel good about. And so we took that base of Banza rice that we had developed and said, okay, how can we make a flavored rice option that really delivers on what customers are wanting? So we ended up spending a ton of time developing spice blends that hit on various cuisines and recipes that people were making. That are 50% lower sodium than the average flavored rice product. And I think the thing that we were sort of doing in the office while we were testing was we let the salt levels be dictated by what we thought was good. And we tried a bunch of different variations with a lot of different sodium levels. And we ended up netting out in a place that was 50% lower sodium, but was still so flavorful.
That's
and
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I think one of the fun things that we learned during our flavored rice research was that people love oftentimes when you're making rice or flavored rice, you boil the spices with the rice when you're cooking it, because rice normally has such a long cook time. Banza rice only cooks in 5 minutes. And so we couldn't put the spices in there and sort of get that flavor experience that we wanted. So what we ended up doing, because consumers just loved the smell that was developing from the spices and seasonings as they were cooking, was we ended up putting these flavored olive oils, clean label, into the rice itself, because it doesn't grow from the ground. And so when you're cooking the rice, the flavored rice, you're going to start smelling garlic, olive oil, because we put it in the rice itself. So there's garlic, olive oil in the physical grain of rice. And then you sprinkle on the herbs and spices at the end for sort of this holistic experience. So it was fun to learn that sort of culinary preparation and that sort of sensory aspect that came about when you were cooking was so important to the overall experience. So we wanted to somehow grab a hold of that and build that sensory experience into Banza rice, which we had the ability to do because of the way that the product is made.
And so the varieties are the garlic olive oil, the ginger scallion, and then chipotle tomato. Is that the 3? Or is there more?
Those are the 3 that we launched with, yes. And really what helped us determine which flavors to go forward with was we talked to a lot of customers and we're asking, okay, how do you use flavored rice today? And we discovered that people were using flavored rice to pair with a recipe. So they would use sort of a garlic or an herb flavored rice when they were grilling fish or meat, or just a basic grain bowl. They were using sort of a tomato-based flavored rice when they were making tacos, or and a ginger scallion sort of flavor variety when they were making fried rice. And so what we decided to do was develop flavors that could be used across a variety of different recipes, but were pretty approachable. We didn't go super culinary as it pertained to certain ingredients because we wanted them to be, especially for the first SKUs or for the first products in the line, we wanted them to be approachable and be able to be used throughout anybody's weeknight repertoire.
Well, they're almost like a nice base also. Like they're not so specific. They're general enough that you can then take it and make it your own. Like I think here in New Orleans and South Louisiana, jambalaya is a thing. And jambalaya is, a heavy rice dish. And the chipotle tomato Banza rice would be like a fantastic base to make this high protein, high fiber, lower carb jambalaya. There's just so much there. Yeah. And I also think like with Thai food, having that with something like the ginger rice, there's just so much that you would, and it almost like inspires you to think, oh, what could I pair with this? What would be good with that? That's really, really cool. And what a cool, like way to just like be creative and like that, because that was the furthest step out that you guys have taken so far from like the traditional pasta yet.
Yep, exactly. It's our newest line. And it was fun because normally when we're doing development, we're tasting plain pasta. But this was fun because we got to taste all of these different seasoning blends and flavors. And we had a lot of fun developing that at the Banza office.
And troubleshooting. And okay, how do we make this work? And you truly did like infuse the flavor there. So as the product line has grown, obviously the team has grown, the entire brand has grown. What does this look like now in terms of the size of how many employees and, how many retailers are you guys in? How many boxes do y'all sell a year of products? Like, what does this look like just to give us that idea? Because it's just been like 6 short years or actually 5 really since the first retailer.
Yeah. So our first production was in sort of the summertime 2014. So just about 6 years actually since it launched in Meyer. For the team, I think it's probably felt like both the shortest but also longest time just because there's been so much work in progress that's been made, but it's been such a great journey. So now Banza is about 40 people at our office, and then we have another 90 people at our manufacturing facility out in California. So all of those people make the magic happen, and the team has experienced a tremendous amount of growth, both in the office and in our manufacturing facility over the past couple of years. So it's been fun to grow the team and scale.
Yeah, from where it started, that's a very quick growth but still a small enough team, like everyone can know everyone. Like it's not so big that there's not, but it's fantastic. And that's great, fun careers, phenomenal careers for everyone. And the reach of retailers, Banza is throughout the US and into Canada.
Yep, we're in the U.S. and in Canada, and we are in over 12,000 retail stores across the country. So it's been fun to also see that scale so quickly as well.
Wow, that's awesome. And are you able to share like how many boxes? I would say boxes of pasta, but now boxes of pasta and rice, like every month or every year, just to give us an idea.
Yeah, I don't actually know that stat, but what I can say is that we're the fastest growing pasta brand in both Whole Foods and Target, and that's even compared to traditional pasta brands. So it has been such a privilege to be able to be a part of that growth and to see Banza so well received in stores like Whole Foods and Target and so many other retail stores that you can find Banza in today.
It's everywhere. I think that's a great point to make to our listeners. If you haven't tried it yet, you don't have to go to a specialty store. You don't have to go to, you can get it at Target, at Walmart. I often see it, Costco. Things are sometimes there, sometimes not. It just depends, but I'll often see it at Costco. So there's, Banza is everywhere. And to that point as well, it's typically on the regular pasta aisle, right? Like not in the health food section of a store.
That's predominantly where you will find it. Depending on the store, sometimes you'll see it in the gluten-free set. But again, our goal is to have
Yeah.
Banza be on shelf with traditional pasta, because again, the goal is to, of course, offer a really nutritious gluten-free option for people who can't eat gluten, but also just be a really awesome, solid, amazing choice for someone who just wants to up their pasta game and have more fiber and protein and fewer carbs in their diet.
It always frustrates me when there's products like this that are just really incredible alternatives when they are not on the regular aisle and you have to go to the special kind of like organic-y health type section, because the person who's already venturing into that section is probably already making some really wise choices. That's why they're scanning those shelves. We want to catch the person, and I say we as dietitians, like we want to catch the person who is scanning the regular pasta aisle and scanning the regular chip aisle and put these better alternatives for any of these brands like right next to the traditional, so that you don't have to venture into that other space. And you mentioned that sometimes, and I know that it varies based on the retailer and you don't always have control over that, but I do think it's great to try to have it on the main aisle like you guys do. But it doesn't even really, it doesn't state gluten-free across the box for the exact reason you said. I think that people who are celiac or feel better following a gluten-free diet, they're in the know about products and they probably are already aware of Banza. And if they're not, someone's going to tell them soon. They're going to know soon.
Yeah.
And not necessarily making it seem like it's being it's marketed just for them. This pasta is for everyone. You don't have to be following a gluten-free diet to want to have this. So y'all made a specific decision to not include that on the front of the packaging.
Absolutely. So our packaging is meant to be fun and eye-catching, hence the orange and hence sort of the fun font that we've made behind our Banza logo. And of course it is gluten-free and it's certified gluten-free. And you can see that seal on the back and side of the box. But again, the goal was to make a pasta for everybody. And so we wanted to really spend our time and sort of precious real estate on the front of the box, sort of communicating what the brand is, of course, but what the shape is that you're going to see inside that box, and then the protein and fiber call out. So Banza pasta is about double the protein of regular pasta, over double the fiber, and about 30% fewer net carbs. So again, those are some tenets of the product that we just think really resonate. We know really resonate with people. So that's what we wanted to sort of spend our time on communicating as it pertains to the front of the box, just to get those people to say, huh, this looks fun. Let me try it. And also it's good for me. That's amazing.
And just keeping it really simple and keeping it very streamlined.
Yes.
What is, so also, as one of the things that we haven't talked about yet is, as Banza's grown, the team has grown, the number of retailers has grown, spreading through the US into Canada. Y'all started out with essentially what was a co-packer of the plant for that, the first rounds of production, but now you guys have your own manufacturing plant.
Yep, that's right. So we originally started manufacturing in Michigan when Banza was in the early days. And we were so fortunate to experience early growth and early excitement around the brand. And we needed to find a partner that could grow and scale with us and make the product quality that we were looking for. And after looking at a bunch of options, it became clear that making our own facility was the best path forward for us. We were able to find an incredible partner who's now our director of manufacturing. And he has years and years of pasta experience. And so he was able to and willing to partner with us, and has built our manufacturing facility from the ground up. And we are so grateful for him because without him and his team, Banza would not be where it is today.
That's really cool. And it gives so much more control, autonomy. There's just a bunch of reasons to, if possible, kind of own that own space, so that you're not at the mercy of another company, or you're not having to deal with maybe what their standards are, or I'm sure there's a lot of other things that can be frustrations with working with a co-packer or a different one, whereas now like everything is kind of under y'all's control.
Yeah, I think there are pros and cons to having your own manufacturing facility. To your point, it gives us so much control. We can call our team anytime and check in on, hey, how's that penny looking? And from a product development perspective, it is incredible because we get to work with them to say, hey, can we schedule a test run for X date? And usually the answer is yes. And just having that really close relationship and ensuring their success and them ensuring our success is just so unique relative to working with an external partner. And of course, there's pros to that. When we're working with an external partner, we don't need to worry about if there's a power outage,
Right.
which now we do.
There's a lot more responsibility that goes with it. Right.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, it has been the right decision for our business. And we are just so pleased to be able to scale with our manufacturing facility that has been able to support the growth of the brand.
So moving forward, what is on the horizon for Banza? What are y'all's goals for like the immediate future, for long term? What's that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think on the product development side, which is where my mind immediately goes, our goal with our existing products is to make them the absolute best quality that we can. So we're constantly looking to understand how can we make our texture as much like traditional pasta as possible and the flavor as neutral as possible. And we're constantly reevaluating and pushing ourselves to source the best ingredients and make the best pasta that we can possibly make. And so that's a focus of our team on a day-to-day basis and will, I think, continue forever because there's always room to grow and improve. And then I think more generally, from a longer term Banza brand perspective, our mission is to make nutritious foods more accessible and take the foods that people love and make them better for them using ingredients like chickpeas. And so we are going to look to continue to deliver on that mission with future product development activities. And furthermore, just get Banza and our products in the hands of customers who haven't tried us yet. I think we are so lucky to have such great customers who love our brand and share our brand with their friends and family. But there's still so many customers that we are looking to get into their kitchen and get into their pasta shelf. And so a lot of our focus on the sales and marketing side will just be to continue to talk about the brand and share our product and get into more retail stores and share the Banza love with everyone that we can.
As you're looking at closing that gap, as you say, between Banza, chickpea pasta, and traditional pasta, are you able to share anything that would resonate with us, the lay people, about process improvement? Like, because I know there's a lot that goes into it that might be all these terms or lingo that doesn't really resonate, but things that have worked to help maybe the texture improve or whatever has been improved over the years. What are some of those processes or techniques if it's something that's relevant for us?
Yeah, I think what we do on a pretty consistent basis is take our product and compare it to traditional pasta or a top-selling gluten-free product in the space to say, okay, what is Banza lacking or what is Banza underperforming on, whether it be flavor or texture or aroma and the smell of the pasta. And so based on what we learn, that sort of dictates what we want to tackle. So if we're seeing that, hey, this batch of pasta is having some issues, we try and understand what that is, how it's performing relative to our competitors, and then determine what are the ways that we can solve it. Is it in processing improvements? Is it in sourcing decisions? Is it in the overall sort of recipe of the product? So there's no one size fits all, but what we always try to do when it comes to making product improvements and understanding what we can do better, it's always sort of comparing it to that benchmark of what's doing really well or how is traditional pasta performing, and then working our way and problem solving from there based on specific traits or specific things that we know that we can close the gap on. So there's no one size fits all.
So what about the chickpeas? Is there any variation in the chickpeas that happens that, like, because it's a natural product, are some more wet, some more dry, that you have to change the batch recipe that's going in? Or are you able to have something that is like completely consistent?
That is a great question. And over the past 6 years, we have learned a ton about chickpeas. And the fact is that there's natural variation in chickpeas from harvest to harvest, from farm to farm. And so we've worked with our partners to better understand how we can sort of make every box of Banza the best that it can be. So we sort of have communicated, hey, this is what needs to happen on the chickpea side in order to make the best box of Banza. And our suppliers have been super flexible and willing to work with us and learn from us, and we've learned from them. And so it's just been a true evolution in better understanding chickpeas as an ingredient, and really being able to work with that natural variation that we see from year to year.
So do y'all actually like work with the farmers who are growing these?
Our sourcing team spends a ton of time working with both farmers and larger suppliers of chickpeas, just to help us learn more and again make our product as amazing as possible.
That's really cool because that's one of the things you don't think about, but I mean, all the time, depending on climate, depending on, what the weather has been, throughout that growing season, I'm sure there's a lot of natural variation. So trying to minimize that as much as possible. And then my assumption would be that if there is variation, you'll have different ways that you'll account for it so that the final product ends up being still consistent.
Exactly. Yeah. Our manufacturing team is able to adjust based on what they're seeing on the line, which is awesome, so that we know even if we're seeing some variation on the ingredient side, we can still make it work. But we're really proud of how far the product has come from that first Meyer delivery.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
Yeah, when we had to change the instructions to make sure that customers didn't put it in a rapid boil because it would disintegrate. But I'm very happy with the fact that we can now feel confident that consumers can just follow their normal pasta cooking instructions and get a good product at the end of the day.
Right. No, totally. And some of the ways that y'all will make the decisions that you do is very specific consumer research. So you have the Banza Innovation Squad, which I'm also part of. It's a consumer panel. How do you use the feedback that you're getting? And what is some of the feedback? Or I'm also curious, what's some of the most bizarre questions y'all get, or just the most bizarre feedback? Because I'm sure you hear everything too.
Oh, we hear absolutely everything. And that's the thing. When we are talking to consumers, we say it all the time and we truly mean it. There is nothing that anybody could say that will hurt our feelings because we've heard it all.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, also giving permission to our consumers to really tell us how it is what is the most useful way that we can use customer feedback. If customers are afraid that they're going to hurt our feelings or say the wrong thing or insult somebody, then we haven't done our job correctly. So our goal really is to facilitate an honest conversation with customers to say, hey, you just tried a prototype of our Banza rice, like you did, Molly, a couple of years ago. What did you like about it? What didn't work? Did it feel like rice? What can we improve upon? And we oftentimes send prototypes of products to our consumers in their home, and they film themselves eating it and give us their feedback. And that is so invaluable in helping us make decisions. And we watch every single video.
And people's faces can be so funny, like when they're...
Oh, yeah. Their face doesn't lie. Even they might, that first sort of reaction, whether or not they're going to like it. And that has been so great because their face says one thing and then they say, yeah, no, I like it. But you know that there are things that we need to improve upon. Right. And again, the willingness of the Banza Innovation Squad and our customers to really take the time and test our products and give us feedback is just so invaluable to our process. We just love to make sure that for the products that are on the market or products that we are looking to launch, talking to customers throughout the way is just so important to us to make sure that we're really delivering on what they're wanting. And if we're not, what we can do better.
And anything that we haven't covered that you think would be interesting, useful for our listeners to know, or just that you want to leave us with before we wrap up?
I think the one other thing, I mentioned it earlier, but I think especially given you're an RD, Molly, and I'm sure your listeners are super interested in sort of new and interesting products. We launched a plant-based vegan mac and cheese earlier this year, really based on consumer feedback. We were hearing that people who were dairy sensitive or dairy intolerant wanted that sort of nostalgic, creamy, holistic mac and cheese experience, but they wanted it to be clean label, and they wanted to be able to recognize the ingredients. So our team worked really hard to say, okay, how can we make things cheesy and umami and comforting without sacrificing on our tenets from an ingredient standpoint? And the mac and cheese we ended up launching is primarily made with sweet potato powder and pumpkin powder and nutritional yeast to sort of build that cheesy flavor without having cheese. So we're super excited about that product and the fact that it's able to deliver on this sort of cheesy experience without having ingredients that people aren't sure about. And it recently launched in Whole Foods, and we're super excited to see the sales come in.
You're right too. There's so much that it is gluten-free, and that's great if that's, what someone either needs or wants, but there are so many people who more and more they're looking for either more plant-based or going strictly vegan. So I think that was a brilliant idea to include that. And the bottom line is just truly making foods that we love, we crave, and we can incorporate into our daily lives, our daily cooking, our everyday meals, and making it really easy for us.
Yeah, that's exactly the goal of what we want to do at Banza. And again, eating healthy and choosing pasta made from chickpeas shouldn't feel like a risk, or it shouldn't feel like a sacrifice. And we really want to make sure that not only do you feel great about trying Banza, but then when you cook it and serve it to your family and friends, it really delivers on that authentic pasta or rice or mac and cheese experience. And that's what we work to do every day.
I love it. And we're all grateful for your hard work that you put into it to bring these foods to our shelves. Thank you so much, Leigh, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Molly. Have a great day.
I'm so grateful to Leigh for joining us today and sharing with us the backstory of Banza and how something goes from an idea and a tiny little startup in an apartment kitchen to this giant brand in just such a short time that has truly, again, changed the landscape and given us so many more nutritious options. It's made it absolutely so much easier for us to make nutritious choices easy and incorporate them into our lifestyle. So let me know what you think as well. If you've tried Banza and you haven't tried it before and you try it after this, let me know what you think. If you love it and you've tried it a whole bunch, you've got your favorite ways to use it, share that with me as well. And if there's other brands that you're a big fan of and you'd like to learn more about, send that my way also. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you would like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.